10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift. I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. Struggling with technology again. Not because I struggle with technology, just because technology is what it is. And, you know, trying to get the show up and running just with all the devices we have, and just one computer decides to just, I don't know, take a couple seconds for a click. One decides to load up, one decides to do whatever they do, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 computers needing to do the show. And then there's some hardware, some audio boards, a mic, and a phone, all involved in getting this, along with software that's on the computers, files, you name it. Anyways, it's simple enough. But between the 4 or 5 computers and the phone and the devices and the software, there's always going to be one thing or another every morning. It is what it is. But you go with it. You run with it. You just continue. You don't stop. And if I wouldn't even be saying anything right now about it, you'd just be like, okay, we're ready for the show. And yeah, so technology, we're grateful for it. Without it, we wouldn't be able to do the show in the first place. And there's some hiccups and some frustrations with it. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio. We're also streaming live at cklu.ca. On the internet, you can click on the Radio Player Canada app on the website and stream us. Download the app and take us with you. Listen to us anywhere, anytime, on your favorite device. We're also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. Found on demand on those 2 platforms immediately following the show, along with x.com/Sudbury News and Sudbury.news, which is our news aggregator, aggregating all the news, meaning it just grabs the news on the internet from the local news organizations and puts it on one website, along with the City of Sudbury's newsroom and Ontario government's newsroom, federal government's newsroom. Like any press releases they put out, you can find that on the right-hand side. So anything the city wants to communicate with the public, the province, the country, and then also the Prime Minister's office, for anyone who's interested in that, also has their newsroom. The latest 2 or 3 releases. But if you click on the headings, you can go right to their newsroom. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the show, the channels, the pages. And also comment. We'll do our best to get your comments up on the screen for those watching, read for those listening. And today we're going to be talking about the Sudbury Star's article on, and it went viral on our own Facebook page as I shared the clipping, or a screen share of the headline and a little bit of the story about the unfortunate accident or person that was deceased due to a fire in our tent city downtown. We'll talk about that. And so we're talking about the most vulnerable today in local news, and then we're going to be talking about those that are at the highest positions of power in Canada and what they're doing with your money and what their plans are and who's doing what and why, and the contrast between the two. You have people living in tents, and then you have people that are just living off your and my dime in the most extravagant, belligerent ways without any apologies whatsoever. It's so the contrast is so prevalent. If somebody doesn't see that, I don't know. So that's why I want to just shed light on that on the show, because CBC doesn't talk like that, even though it's true. CTV won't say that the people at our highest levels of government are living high on the hog and committing crimes, taking your money and just misspending it and using it as if it's their own, all kinds of stuff, you know. They just don't. They won't, because they're being paid from the very government that we're talking about now, which I am not. I'm a volunteer. This is all volunteer. Coming at you from a private studio. You know, from a basement, if you will. And through technology, I have my mic that's all hooked up to a software that connects me with the local radio station. And I also live stream at the same time. And we have a few listeners that I'm so grateful for, that contribute from time to time. And, but other than that, it's at my own expense and my own time. And it's just a one-man kind of operation. And so I do my best to take local news articles, expound on them, have people comment on them, so it's a conversation about them. And then also try to get a sense of what's going on in our region, province, and country, and in our world, right? And really try to dig. I'm only interested in the truth. Always have been, always will be. I just want to find out what's really going on. And news today, especially in Canada, is strictly propaganda. The laws and regulations that are coming out from the highest levels of government are only made to give them more power and to silence anyone who disagrees. And if you disagree with that, you really are misinformed as to what the government is doing in terms of the laws they're making. Just ask ChatGPT, say, okay, what laws are the government making right now that are totalitarian in nature or could be viewed as that? That's it. Done. Don't ask me. You know, and again, you say, well, that's AI, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, you got to find it out somehow. It's part of research, and it's a way it scans the entire internet and takes information. So, and if as a tool to research, it's pretty darn awesome. Now, what's not pretty darn awesome is our weather. And so let's start off with that, and then we'll kick into the rest of the show. We'll cover that and more with your comments when we come back right after this. And Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. And currently it is -10, wind chill -19. Today, periods of snow ending in the morning, and then cloudy with a 60% chance of flurries, 2 centimeters in the forecast. Wind gusting to 50 kilometers per hour. Then the temperature's falling to -10 this afternoon. Wind chill -19 in the afternoon. I heard the Sudbury Stars forecast was colder than that. I think it was wind chill in the -20s, mid-20s, And then tonight, mainly cloudy, 40% chance of flurries. Wind gusting to 60 kilometers per hour, low of minus 20. So that with the wind chill, that's going to, be very cold. And then minus 33 overnight. Risk of frostbite. So it's going to be very cold. And then tomorrow morning, a mix of sun and cloud, becoming sunny in the morning. But with that comes the cold, right? 30 kilometers per hour, so it's a bit of a breeze. High of minus 16, but the wind chill is minus 33 in the morning, minus 24 in the afternoon with a risk of frostbite. Again, increasing cloudiness overnight, tomorrow night though. And that's when the temperatures kind of become more moderate on Friday. Minus 7 with periods of snow. Minus 10 with a 60% chance of snow on Saturday. Sunday, same idea with a minus 14. 40% chance of flurries, minus 14 on Monday. Mix of sun and cloud, and a high of minus 14 on Tuesday. So getting really cold overnight tonight and through tomorrow before it gets, I don't want to say warmer with winter temperatures, but it gets milder. And then the temperature drops to about minus 14 for the beginning of the next week. So that's your Sudbury weather, and it's brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back with news headlines, comments, and more right after this. Okay, thanks for sticking around, ladies and gents. A few morning shout outs, and then we'll get right into the crux of what we're going to be talking about today. So you got good morning, Northern Hillbilly. Good morning. It's not morning. It's not Northern Hillbilly. I was just assuming that because he's always first on Facebook and my eyes are bad. And so I was just assuming that. It's Nancy. And her handle is Angelfish, but it's Nancy. And did get it on the text yesterday. Thanks for that. And one quick dub. You got good morning to you. Now here's Northern Hillbilly. Good morning. And on Facebook, we have Vin, we got Judy, we got Monique. Good morning. From Barry, liking and sharing as usual. Hazel's here with their prayer emoji, which is much needed and much appreciated. Monique is here from Sudbury with a smiley emoji. Diane is here. Good morning to you. And Belinda with her good morning with a bit of a thought this morning. When institutions lose their moral purpose, they survive only as systems of power. Perfect for our deep dive today. When our institutions, which government would be an institution, lose their moral purpose, they survive only as systems of power. Wonderful quote, as usual, and thanks for that, and always in line with what we're talking about. And good morning, Maurice. And Hazel says, makes perfect sense. And good morning, Liette from Collingwood. Hand clapping this morning. Hope you are doing well. And David, hasn't seen you for a bit. Good morning. Hope you're having a great new year. And Diane. Bob Johnson definitely involved with a lot of the homeless. And we'll be on Friday with his buddy, Tom Price. We'll be talking about that and more. They're going to be emailing me with some topics that we're going to be covering for Friday's show, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, and Liette is saying power corrupts for sure. Always following the money makes it easy to find the biggest corruptors and fraudsters. And that's exactly what we'll be talking about as our deep dive this morning. Okay. So Nancy's found another handle here, it looks like. They don't want people living a peaceful life. Well, again, right? It just divides when you're at the top and you feel you're entitled, like Northern Hillbilly is saying here. And Jerome, good morning to you. Book banning happening in our schools, homeless burning to death in tents in the city center, a short walk from City Hall. What have you done to my song, Ma? Okay. I'm not getting the last thing, but it's just probably because I'm out of popular culture a lot of times. And Hazel, we definitely want to... no problem, Hazel. It's a passion that I have to just get together with wonderful people like yourself every morning and the citizens of Sudbury and just kind of talk about the things that are important to us. Just like we would if we got together at our favorite coffee shop kind of thing in the morning and chatted. Such a sad happening. Those in charge should be so proud. This is unacceptable and as a direct result of their doing. It has happened in Barrie. Also, we're talking about the person who perished in our tent city here. It happened in Barrie also. Different situation though. 2 people were killed and it went viral. It's also a direct result of those in charge. How do they sleep at night? All is beyond me. Heartless and evil is what they are. And Sudbury Steffi, good morning to you. Question is what we're doing, what we are going to do about it. That's right. Question is, what are we going to do about it? And that is a good question. And that's taking responsibility for our community, our region, our province, our country. They want the conversation of the North into third world crap hole. Look at our bus stops. Okay, that's Northern Hillbilly. And enough talking about all the issues. It's time for solutions and actions. I don't think anyone could be opposed to that, myself included. One quick dub. It'll be cold tonight. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be way colder tonight. And for those that are out in the elements, has anyone happened to spend any time Sudbury, Sioux Court, courthouse lately? Has anyone had the pleasure of dealing with any police or policy enforcement lately? That's Sudbury Steffi. I do quite often as I'm on the roads quite frequently. I've dealt with police. I've taken a few to court and fought them for what they've alleged that I've done, things like that. And so it's pretty fun. And you get some good, you get some bad, you get some ugly. We do have to have police and we have to have courts. However, people are not immune to corruption and egos and power. And when that's in place, sometimes there's abuse of that. And I guess if you're in those positions, that's up to you to be able to regulate your own ego and your own relationship with power and having power over people and how you manage that, right? No matter what you are. And it becomes institutionalized like our courts. It's a world within a world, that whole legal system. You walk into the courts, it's almost like you enter a different country. There's the person who's in charge, and then they have their government kind of thing. And it's a really interesting culture for sure. Yeah. Okay, so we got to, and good morning, Mikey. We're just going to be continuing on here. We want to get to our stories of the day because there's lots to talk about in a short period of time. And Mikey, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Top of the morning, ladies and gents. Same to you. And Pat, good morning as well as Diane. And Brian here, just as I see a few people checking in, good morning. And then we're just going to be putting the comments up on the screen in the meantime. So, top story of the day comes to you from the Sudbury Star. It's the story about somebody unfortunately perishing in our downtown tent city. I don't even like saying that we have a downtown tent city. Can you imagine 10 years ago, like you being able to look into the future and seeing Sudbury? You know, you'd be like, what the heck just happened? And good morning, Betty from Niagara. And Cheryl as well. Thanks for being on. So the death of a 38-year-old woman in a fire of downtown's city-approved energy court encampment. So the ECE, are we going to give that an acronym? Energy Court Encampment, the ECE. I don't know if that's going to catch on. Probably not. It has renewed urgent concerns about the safety and advocacy of tent cities as a response to homelessness. Advocates say the tragedy, while devastating, was predictable given the ongoing fires, explosions, and unsafe heating practices in encampments, especially during winter. Many argue that the deaths have become dangerously normalized despite being entirely preventable. Anti-poverty groups or anti-poverty activist Lori McCauley described the situation as a long-standing crisis rather than an isolated incident. Noting that the people living in tents are forced to take extreme risks to stay warm. She and others say the very existence of sanctioned encampments reflects systemic failure, not a solution. As Sudbury Steffi was talking about, solutions. Public Health Sudbury and districts echoed these concerns, emphasizing that unhoused individuals face heightened risks from cold, unsafe living conditions, and lack of dignity, and calling for stronger action to prevent further loss of life. Greater Sudbury Fire Chief Robert Grimwood and the fire department arrived quickly, but the blaze had already burned out, confirming the fatality alongside police and investigators. He stressed that fires and encampments are a growing issue across Ontario, particularly in winter, and reiterated that there is no safe way to heat in a tent due to fire and carbon monoxide risks. In response to the latest death, the fire service says it is increasing safety messaging and outreach to encampment residents. So what they're going to do as a solution, I guess if we're talking about solutions, is they're going to educate the occupants of the tents in fire safety, of how to warm your tent and minimize the risk of fire for safety. Advocates point out that the dangers at Energy Court are well documented, with multiple fires and injuries reported in recent years, including previous fatalities. Critics argue the site offers minimal services and unsafe conditions, such as flooding and poor infrastructure. Homeless advocate Holland Marshall says Sudbury has failed to provide practical safety measures seen elsewhere, like smoke detectors, and instead relies largely on pamphlets. He and others are calling for immediate alternatives such as overnight warming centers, parked buses, or extended hours at public facilities. While the city has pledged to end homelessness by 2030, remember, that's Mike Perron. He initiated that initiative, and the city definitely was in favor of that, ending homelessness in Sudbury by 2030. Many advocates see the goal as unrealistic without major investment in housing and income supports. They argue homelessness is rising far faster than people are being housed, while social assistance rates remain far below the cost of living. Both Marshall and Macaulay say frontline workers are burning out as they try to manage an impossible situation, warning that without bold, immediate action from governments, tragedies like this will continue. So is this a case, as Sudbury Steffi's kind of pointing out here, we're always, I guess, complaining about situations, and instead of doing things for ourselves, we're going to the government. And we're saying, can you do something about this? You need to do something about this. So is there something wrong with that model? Could it be possibly that government policies and the very people that are causing the situation to happen that we're going to for the solution? Is that possible? And what is wrong with that if that is the case? Right? Pretty incredible. And so the very people that we're going to don't have a great record of managing these things. Like I said, is it possible that they're the very ones who created this climate of homelessness in the first place through their very strong immigration policies, through their inflationary policies, through their welfare policies, policy, creating the kind of country we have, which then causes the issues that we face, right? Could that be? Or was it our fault? Whose fault is this? Like, how did this happen? This didn't just come out of nowhere, right? Who's connecting the dots? Who's caring? And if somebody's if somebody's coming into my yard and dumping manure on my lawn every day. So there's one thing, you need to know who's dumping the manure, maybe why they're doing it, how you can stop them from doing it. So that's one thing. You can come up with solutions as well as how to get rid of the manure that they're dumping on your front lawn. So someone's coming and dumping manure every day on my lawn. I could just say, okay, I got to go buy an excavator and just, I'm going to get rid of the dung every day. Or I could know who's doing it. And good morning, Andrew. Thanks for being on. Become educated as why they're doing it, what's going on. Like, why are they dumping manure on my lawn every day? Find out that they have something to gain by doing this. They have to get rid of excess manure from their property, let's say, and to spare the expense, they're going to just dump it on mine. So knowing who's doing it, knowing why they're doing it, can be educated to know how to stop them from doing it. So I don't always have to come up with the solutions to get their manure off my lawn when it shouldn't be there in the first place. So see how complex this is, right? So an example of that are what they do with our money. So it's just one small example. Like, what do they do with the money that they collect? And do they collect quite a bit of taxes, do you think? It's like a lot of taxes. They should be able to manage the country no problem with the amount of money they get. But they don't. And anyways, here's just one small example of what they do with your money, and it goes way beyond this.
While Canadians struggle with high taxes and crushing inflation, here are 10 egregious examples of how the Liberals have been wasting your tax dollars. $8.2 million on gender-just, low-carbon rice in Vietnam. $4.5 million on accelerating green and climate finance in the Philippines. $2 million on family planning in Nigeria. $6.5 million on climate resilience and women's empowerment in Moldova. $1 million on intercultural dialogue in Ecuador. $5.2 million on gender sensitivity in UN peacekeeping. $20 million on stopping open defecation in Ghana. $7.2 million on a gender-responsive systems approach to universal healthcare in the Philippines. 220,000 on indigenous wisdom for climate resilience research in Pakistan, and 1.6 million on greening the global finance system. And let's not forget, 22 billion for Ukraine and more than 355 million for Gaza and Palestine. Canadians are dying before they can get health care. Too many First Nations communities still don't have clean drinking water. Food bank usage is at record highs. Canadians deserve to know about this scandal. Share this video.
So if we're thinking of solutions to this problem, like this is a problem, right? Your tax money is going billions and billions and billions of dollars going to these very obscure, bizarre initiatives in far-off countries that have nothing to do with anything, which is just a form of money laundering as far as I'm concerned. So you get a politician's friend who sets up a not-for-profit in some obscure country and just comes up with some dumb name, and they apply for all this money and they get your tax money, but it's the friend of the politician who benefits from it. What accountability do we go into these countries and say, hey, is this money actually going to these things? And if they are, they're dumb things to begin with. Sorry, I can't come up with any other articulate word for it. They're ridiculous initiatives to begin with. Just they're laughable, just the titles of them, let alone anything else. But laughable, it's like a comedy Saturday Night Live skit if it were 10 years ago. But it's our reality today. And it's true. So it's also terrible. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. So what do we do as a solution? What is a solution to the government coming and dumping the manure on our front lawn like that? You know, what do you do when they're spending your money out of control for things that make no sense everywhere around the world? When we have, what could they build downtown Sudbury for people that are struggling with that money? You know, teaching people not to defecate in the public in some far off third world country, spending, $10 billion on that. Really? Like, that doesn't make you upset? And say, okay, we need to find out who's getting the money, why they're getting the money, and stop it. And one way to do it is to publicize it, which our media is not going to do. That's all true information you can look up where your tax money goes on government websites. I know they've scrubbed some of it and a lot of it as it's getting attention, but it's still there. You can still find out how poorly, just blatantly in your face, how poorly this government is spending your money while people, citizens of this country, are going through homelessness and not being able to afford food at the grocery store, you name it, losing their jobs. Meanwhile, so we need to get the word out. So that's what this show is trying to do, is get the word out. And then once we're a little bit educated, maybe then we know enough to think about solutions of what we're going to do. But what can you do when something's done on that level? And you have a leader like we do, which is Mark Carney, who's in China right now and then going to be going off to Davos with the World Economic Forum, right? Meeting with unelected leaders, talking about our futures, giving away our money like it's his own. And he is benefiting and enriching himself by doing these things. Like, how backwards could this be? And what can we do about it? So here's Brad Wilder, Wake Up Canada News, to kind of shed a little bit of light on what I just mentioned.
Welcome back. This next article was researched and written by one of our many Wake Up Canada News contributing reporters. People keep asking us why so many Canadians are using the word treasonous. They act like it came out of nowhere, like it's just anger or aggression. It didn't. It came from watching the same pattern repeat while life in this country gets harder and leadership drifts further away from the people it claims to serve. It's not complicated. when you take power in Canada, you owe loyalty to Canada, not to foreign governments, not to global financial networks, not to elite conferences behind closed doors either. Canada first. That's the job. Now, look at what's actually happening. While Parliament is sidelined and Canadians are drowning under debt, housing collapse, energy chaos, and rising costs, the Prime Minister leaves the country. Not to help Canadians, not to fix the economy, he flies to China, a one-party authoritarian state that has already been identified by Canada itself as a national security risk. Then he continues on to Davos, to the World Economic Forum, the private club where unelected elites decide what countries should look like without asking the people who live in them. That's not optics. That's priority. China does not praise Western leaders by accident. It does not extend warmth without strategy. It uses access, flattery, and financial ties to influence decision makers. This openly discussed, in foreign policy circles everywhere. It's not a secret. So when a Canadian leader is praised by China and cannot explain why, and then continues to travel there anyway, Canadians are right to feel uneasy. When that same leader seeks to rebuild ties that were deliberately cut for security reasons, people are right to ask who this benefits. And it isn't Canadians. No way, man. Not a chance. Back home, nothing improves. Energy is strangled. Growth is blocked. Investment leaves. Canada's closest ally and largest trading partner is ignored, while Beijing is courted. People who did everything right are falling behind, while those closest to power are rewarded. Loyalty inside Ottawa is traded like currency, while voters are treated like an inconvenience. This is where the anger comes from, not from ignorance, from recognition. People recognize what it looks like when leaders stop governing for a country and start managing it for others. When decisions are made to please foreign powers and global institutions instead of citizens. When accountability disappears and status replaces responsibility. This is not about emotion. It's about sovereignty. If Canada is still a sovereign nation, then no one gets a free pass. Not because they're powerful, not because they're connected, not because they speak the language of global finance, that's for sure. When conduct repeatedly raises questions about foreign influence, conflicts of interest, and alignment with outside agendas, the response is not silence. It's investigation. It's transparency. It is accountability under Canadian law even. Anything less tells Canadians the truth they already fear, that the system protects itself, not the country. A nation that refuses to question its leaders when the evidence piles up is not stable. It's hollow. A government that answers upward to global elites and outward to foreign powers instead of downward to its people is not representative. It's called captured. That's why people are using harsh words, not because they want chaos, but because they can feel something slipping away. Trust, control, ownership of their country. Call it treasonous behavior or call it something softer if it helps you sleep better at night. But don't pretend Canadians are imagining it. They see the trips. They see the alliances. They see who gets protected and who gets crushed. They see a country being treated like an asset instead of a home. And once people see that, they don't unsee it. Not anymore. Thanks for watching Wake Up Canada News. Please like, follow, and share us on all your favorite socials, including Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and at our website at wakeupcanadanews.com.
That was Brad Wilder. I really appreciate, his model that he has. He has contributing writers, and then he basically delivers the message through the video in a news kind of format, And again, it's up to independent journalists, independent, to be able to expose what's happening in our country at all levels of government and in every, whatever's going on, whoever is dumping the manure on our lawn, we need to let them know that it's not right to do that. Our right to have our own lawn if we work on it and mow it and trim it and make sure it looks well. What right does anyone else have to come and create the conditions that, take away everything you've worked so hard for, but they get gain from it somehow. I don't know, that's not the greatest analogy in the world, but you get what I'm saying. They create a problem with your resources. I'll come up with probably a better analogy when I have more time, but yeah, I think Belinda said they're basically using your money to tank us. They're using our money at our own demise to sink the ship, kind of thing. And we are on the Titanic right now. That band is playing the last song they're gonna play as the ship is taking on water, and we are wondering what we can do about it. Is there something we can do? Are there solutions? What are the solutions if there are solutions? To me, it's just going to get weirder and worse before it gets better, because it kind of has to. The world kind of has to collapse because it's like a big cancer. As far as I can see, at that level, what do you do? What do you do at that level when the highest level in your government is making those decisions and then going to just take over the country, make ties with the enemy of the one country that's been keeping the world safe for, the last 100 years or so, making it so that way people could actually have some sort of normalcy. And then our country is opening the doors for that enemy to be able to come in and militarily, strategically take down that country. No matter what you think of it, history shows nobody's prospered as much for the reasons of the policies that government had, and I'm talking about the USA. Sure, you have been propagandized just lately of why you shouldn't like them so much, and are they perfect? They are not. But if it wasn't for them, we would not have enjoyed the type of life that we had over the last at least 100 years. The good, bad, and the ugly. It hasn't been perfect, but it would have been a lot worse without them. Anyways, it's all the time we got for the show today. Stay tuned tomorrow at the same time, same place, on the same platforms. We'll be back. And stay tuned for Earshot Daily at the moment. And Nat, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Earshot Daily is right up next on CKLU 96.7 FM. Make sure to like, share, take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao for now.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.